TCI is brought to you by Forestry, sire of 42 stakes winners, including 2011 Preakness winner Shackelford.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. I'm John Siegel alongside Joel Cunningham. Today we're going to talk about a few possible Preakness starters. Joel, this could be a really exciting Preakness. We could have the first 5 finishers of the Kentucky Derby back in this race.
Well, I think that's where the key to the Preakness is, John. I really feel like your winner is going to come from those top 5 finishers in the Kentucky Derby. They were well clear from the rest of the field. And you know what? We handed out Derby grades for the top 5 finishers earlier this week. Let's dig into it a little more because I really think, again, that's where the Preakness outcome is going to come from because these 3-year-olds have sort of played to form all year long. So we turn now to the Twin Spires TV race replay, John, and we catch the stretch run of the Kentucky Derby. You see Bodemeister here leading them into the stretch. And you see the other 4 horses come on. They're well clear by the time they hit the wire. And then obviously your winner persevering here. But is he really the best? You know, 3 links covered the top 5 finishers. What can these other horses do coming back in 2 weeks to sort of tighten up that margin of victory from I'll Have Another?
All right, well, let's take a few minutes and talk about it. If we could go back to the finish, you can see Creative Cause in 5th place. How can he make up those 3 lengths and come back and win the Preakness?
Well, John, if you're a believer in speed figures and you're a believer in loss of ground, you look at Creative Cause's trip. I mean, he goes in that far turn in the Derby 6 wide, and he doesn't get any less wide around the entire turn. He gets in the stretch 7 or 8 wide. How much ground did he lose there? It was certainly significant, although kind of unquantifiable. However, the speed figures came back very strong. So here's a colt that's just been as high quality and as consistent as any of these 3-year-olds. So when you're looking for a horse that is a candidate to run his race back in 2 weeks, you'd have to say Creative Cause is that honest sort. And you know what? If you take away the good trip I'll Have Another had in the Derby, give that trip to Creative Cause. Who knows? He may have been your winner.
All right, let's talk about Went the Day Well. Joel, you see him here in 4th place. He came roaring late, Joel. This horse ran 17th, and he was 9th at the top of the stretch. Made up a lot of ground. How can he come back and win the Preakness?
A couple things important to note about this colt is nobody made up ground at Churchill, and we kind of talked about that earlier this week. He did it. Like you mentioned, he only had a few horses beat, down the back stretch, and he comes rallying, finishes stronger than anybody in the race, gallops out strong. So here's a lightly raced colt that's kind of putting it all together. One thing of note is that he added blinkers in the Derby, and I think we saw in the spiral he may have hung a little bit. He finishes very well and seriously in the Derby with the blinkers on. He's kind of the colt, John, that for me, if you look at his speed figure, he could be sitting on a breakthrough performance, but he needs a fast pace.
All right, let's talk about Dullahan. Joel, this is a horse that closes as well, but you mentioned Creative Cause being wide on the turn. Nobody was further out than Dullahan. He comes closing late, proved that he can handle the dirt. But I want to know is how does he come back and win the Preakness?
Dullahan also, along with Creative Cause and I'll Have Another, had the top 3 speed figures pretty much across the board of any of these horses in the Derby, John. So Dullahan, a lot of people thought he ran his best race in the Derby, which is interesting because he was kind of labeled as a turf or a poly track horse coming in. So that's very important to note. We know the dirt's not a question. He's a big, strong colt. I think Dale Romans will have him ready to go like Shackelford coming back in 2 weeks. He's like Went the Day Well, though, John. He needs some pace. He needs that quality speed to back up. Now, he might get it if Trinity Berg runs in the race, like they're saying that he may. Hansen and Bodemeister are fast, too. But there are enough quality horses in this group that'll get the jump on him, including the Derby winner, that I think he's going to need enough speed to be able to run at late.
Well, you mentioned pace. We got to talk about Bodemeister. He runs 2nd in this race after setting a ridiculous pace. Joel, this horse showed a lot of heart in the Derby. How does he come back and win the Preakness, though?
That's the million-dollar question for Bodemeister, John, because he was the best horse in the Derby, in my opinion. If he could harness that speed to go 10 furlongs, he was very brave inside the 16th pole. Just emptied the tank a little too much early. I think he'll be your favorite over I'll Have Another. The question for him is, in a shorter field of 14 horses, and now he has a target on his back, I think Hansen will go after him. And I just wonder, big race in the Arkansas Derby, lightly raced colt, come back 3 weeks, run huge in the Kentucky Derby, now come back in 2 weeks. That's a lot to ask of a horse, so you wonder if he's going to bounce.
All right, let's talk now about our Kentucky Derby champion, I'll Have Another. Joel, everybody's wondering, can this horse win the Triple Crown? He's got to win the Preakness first. How does he come back and do that?
This colt has done everything right this year, and a lot of people don't think he's getting the respect he deserves, because the bottom line is he beat a very good and accomplished Derby field, John. We talked about how good this group was. coming into the race. And I think if you look at the top 5 finishers in the finish, it was a very legitimate race. I could see all 5 of these horses being where they are. I mean, all have run very well in their preps leading up to this race. So I'll have a legitimate winner. However, he did get a golden trip, John. The bottom line is on the speed figures, I don't think he's that much better than this group. So he's going to have to get a good trip and hope some others don't get better trips. But the one good thing about him is he's fresh, John. You know, they took that time between the Bob Lewis and the Santa Anita Derby. I think there's something left in the tank for him. So I think you'll see another good try, and he's your horse to beat.
All right, before next weekend's Preakness, we have the Peter Pan this weekend. Joel, we need to talk about that real quick. Could be a prep for the Belmont. Let's bring in our resident handicapper. His name's Ed DeRosa. He's with Brissnet.com. Hey, Ed, how did the Derby treat you?
Unfortunately, I was served with some melancholy when I'll have another one after being on him most of the spring and hopping off for Hansen, but as always, a terrific race.
Well, I've seen speed figures all over the board. Was this Derby a good race?
Yeah, I think it was. Briss certainly had it faster than some of the other services, and while our figures aren't pace adjusted, I do think the pace played a role. Olive Another was pretty close to Bodemeister's blistering pace, certainly not a dead closer as Dullahan was. So to me, not only was Olive Another quick early, but he was quickest late to get the job done in the lane, and I think that's what made the figure as fast as it is on Briss.
We have the Peter Pan Stakes this weekend at Belmont, sort of a local prep for the Belmont Stakes. Who do you like, and will we see any Belmont contenders emerge?
Well, I definitely think we saw the best of this generation in the Derby, so this sort of has a not ready for primetime field. I like LeBernardine in here. I love the N1X stretching out to a mile, and for him to have broken his maiden going 6 furlongs as a Bernardini, I think speaks well to his talent. Race seems to shape up for him. Mile and an eighth should be perfect. So for me, it's LeBernardine and the Peter Pan.
All right, Ed, thanks for those picks, man. We look forward to next week and get your Preakness picks.
Awesome. Take care, guys.
Well, Joel, you see Ed's going to go with an allowance winner in here. There's some pretty well-known horses in here. The Lumber Guy and also Mark Valesky, a horse that could have run in the Kentucky Derby. Tell me, who do you like in the Peter Pan?
It's an intriguing race, John. You know, I see it as a last run sort of race. I think there's a lot of speed drawn to the inside. You have Right to Vote and the Lumber Guy. Mark Valesky's the best horse, but they were concerned about running him in the Derby. So I think you have to be concerned about him being a short price favorite in here. I'm going to go with an upset. Street Life, a horse we've always liked. Yep. Breaks from the outside. I think he's going to funnel in. If they go fast enough, now he needs a fast pace, but he's going to get the blinkers on. He gets a little more experienced rider in here. If he can make that last run, I still think Street Life has the goods.
All right, nice pick. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap the Peter Pan and also talk about more Preakness probables.